and welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. So you are both, well, one of our clients is how we first got connected, but you are also an international speaker and you now teach other entrepreneurs and business leaders how to speak, how to do events. And I'm so excited that you're here because I secretly have so many questions to ask you. So thank you for coming on.
Well, I'm delighted to be here. I'm so glad that we are together here, and I'm so happy to be working with Cradle.
That's so good to hear. Good. So Mary, tell me how you got into public speaking in the first place. What were you doing before and what made you become a speaker?
I was in mortgage banking before, and I was in operations. A few of my loan officers started to ask me if I would go to their real estate clients and do a seminar for them. I thought, sure. I was already teaching mortgage banking at night in adult night class. So going into an office and teaching was an easy thing for me, especially because these realtors were definitely I'd say a novice audience. They knew something, but they certainly didn't know more than me. So that made me comfortable. Then I fast forward a couple of years. I was married and I was having my first child. And I decided that I am not going back to an office after I have my baby. At that time, 40, 50 hours a week. Just wasn't going to do it. So I went out on maternity leave and I decided to start a contract business where I was doing the operations work for small mortgage companies or small brokerages. After I was watching them for not too long, I realized that they were making way more money than me and I was doing all the work. Like without me, I was the backbone of all these different companies. So I decided to go ahead and open up my own mortgage brokerage. I had several relationships in the industry that were following me. And so the business initially wasn't too hard to get off the ground, but when I decided to grow it, most people in that situation, they set appointments. They try to set face-to-face meetings with other realtors, financial planners, CPAs, et cetera, anybody in a referable business, which is fine. I could do that, but I wanted to find a way to speak to more people. So I started to go into offices and give presentations. And the key that I found out that was just pure luck is that they really didn't want to hear about my products. Yeah, they wanted to get to know me because if they're going to refer business, they the old sales idiom that people want to get to know, like, and trust you. And in order to do that, you have to share that information with them. And getting up in front of an audience and just speaking about my product, that wasn't doing it. That they were tuning out like, it's another loan officer, right? I started to come up with topics that I thought would be really interesting to them. And my first one, I got in front of an industry group. It was probably about 150 people. I spoke about the history of that area, that county, how it was developed. And I had done some great research and there was some really, really interesting things. So all of a sudden, all these people were like tuned in. And then after the meeting, they came up to ask me questions like, how did you know so much of that stuff? And meanwhile, I'm just collecting cards the whole time, right? And I figured out that was golden. I didn't get to meet every one of them face to face, but they got to know me. That way, even if they were on the listing side of a transaction and my name came up as the loan officer, I would always reach out to those listing agents and they would go, oh, hi, Mary. I love blah, 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 and all of a sudden there was a relationship that was built before I even met them face to face. That's when I discovered that was gold for me. I was comfortable in front of audiences because of my classes at night that I was teaching. And I was young at this time. I was like in my mid 20s and most of the people in my class were probably about 33 to 43 or so. And when you're 23, 24, 25, you think 40 is old. Right?
Of course. Yep.
But I wasn't intimidated by them because I knew my knowledge so well. I knew what I was talking about. When I transferred those skills to sharing it with my referral partners, whether that was CPAs or planners or realtors, that's when I really started to build my whole network. then real estate organizations started to reach out to me to speak to them. And it might be because new products or programs that were coming on the market and they wanted to hear about it. Another really important thing I learned when I was teaching the classes, when you're teaching mortgage banking to sort of newbies, you have to, now at the time we didn't have the software that we have now. So we had to teach people how to calculate a lot of formulas, how to calculate loan amounts and ratios and whatnot. It's kind of dry. Yeah. Not for me, because I'm a numbers nerd. And I like putting numbers together like they're puzzles. Okay, if that doesn't work, how can I make it work? So my brain works a little differently, and I knew that. But to keep them entertained for 2 hours at night after they've worked the whole day, I had to make it interesting. So I started to incorporate some of the stories of my buyers into my classes. And I saw the interest peak way and maintain much higher. So I started to use that when I spoke to the realtors and CPAs and what have you. And that's how I got them to, when they saw, oh, Mary's speaking at that luncheon, that they would come, because it was, they didn't really know why, but it was interesting. And it was interesting because I was incorporating storytelling.
So good. Wait, so I want to pause you right here, because what you're describing is so different than when we think of public speaking. We think of someone who's like passionate about an idea, wants to share their story, and they go out and speak. But you really use public speaking just in your actual career. And I think that probably relates to so many people listening, because they're probably CEOs or they're leading a sales team, and they just want to be able to show up to an office of potential prospects or potential clients and be able to share their information in a way that makes them stand out from the dozens of other salespeople coming to their company to talk about products and services. So what are some other ways you think that this works? Like, what other business leaders or industries should be using this to hopefully get new clients?
Right there tells you when you're speaking to your potential client, you can incorporate this. And you don't have to go on stages like I did. It's even if you walk into an office and you're going to have a meeting and you want to sell them your product, but first you have to sell them on you. And selling them on you isn't about just sitting down and saying, I started in the industry and I've got this experience and I've made top producers. None of that stuff matters. They want to know, how are you like them? And how are you going to solve their problem? But first, they have to get to know you. And the best way to do that is with a story. I'll give you an example that I used to use with the realtors. If you're going in for a listing appointment, and you could be going into, fill in the blank, any industry going in for an appointment. But the realtors would sit down and say something like if they're farming that area, they know it really well. They could say something like, hey, do you know that street out, the main street coming in here called Melinda Way? Do you know who that's named after? And they're like, no. And he goes on to tell them the history of the family that started the area and the great granddaughter and what she accomplished and why she meant so much to the community and they're just like blown away. It's like, really? Well, you are now an expert in their neighborhood.
That makes so much sense. Instead of saying why you're the expert because you've sold so many houses and you won this award, just demonstrating your knowledge. And also, I just recently bought a house. So if I heard a story like that from my realtor, that would be the first thing I would do when telling my dad about the house or something. Like I would use that story, and that would make me truly want to work with that realtor.
Yeah, because you feel like they know this place. And it doesn't matter if you're working for an air conditioning company and you sell parts, you walk into an office, there's something on the wall. There's something about your product. It reminds you of something when you were growing up. And me and my brother used to work on cars, and that little thing that's on your desk over there, right? And you talk about that. It's like, oh, okay. I know he has brothers. I know he used to work on cars. I know, right? So they're learning about you. And that's making the human connection. And know, like, and trust is right behind it.
Oh, that's amazing. So, so if I get this right, whether you're meeting a potential client, doing a Zoom call, or doing an actual event, is a story always the best way to start off when you're
always. I always tell people, when you get on stage, don't say, thank you for having me, or thank the host for bringing me here. I appreciate you giving me your time. It's so typical to think in the beginning. Forget about it. You have like depending on the survey you look at, you have between 8 and 12 seconds to capture their attention before they're on their phone.
Mm-hmm.
Your credentials are probably on the flyer in front of them, or your host has already said who you were. So go right into your story, capture their attention right away. This also works for team leaders or senior C-level. When you have to speak at your annual event, all the employees are there, or at least all the sales personnel, but especially all the employees, especially if you're breaking out like a new product or a new process of doing things where, I really got to get the buy-in on this.
Mm-hmm.
Start out with a story about you and your family. They don't know who you are. You may be leading this organization for 20 years. And honestly, I get a lot of people that reach out to me and say, our CEO needs to hear from you. They need to hear this because our annual event is a snooze event. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. So when they get on stage and they can start with the story. And the other thing is, as they're presenting their new procedure or product, they want to let everybody know in the company how it's going to affect their position, their life, whether it's going to make it better or different, or if this is a new challenge for us. But when you help us get through this part, we can move to here and then the ultimate outcome. But breaking down the steps and letting everyone know how important it is huge. And throughout that presentation, you're going to drop little stories of interest so that they can relate to you and they know that you understand them.
That's so good. I'm aware how little I use stories, so I'm going to start doing this more often. Thank you. One question I have, how do you get over the stage fright? So, a Zoom call is no big deal. Maybe walking into an office to sell your products or services is intimidating, but especially getting on stage is very intimidating. I have a couple horror stories of getting up in a class in college and just kind of really feeling a little bit panicky, and it stuck with me. So how do people overcome the stage fright, and how do you help them do that?
Number one is preparation. Most people are afraid of being on stage, even a Zoom or sales call. Sales call, sure, they might be afraid they're not going to make the sale, but it doesn't matter. You get so many no's and you get a yes if you do it right. People are afraid of being judged. And they might say, I'm afraid I'm going to mess up. And people will think, right? So it's always there. I'm afraid I'm going to forget what I'm going to say. I'm afraid they're going to think I don't know what I'm talking about, or somebody's going to ask me a question I don't have the answer to. Actually, when that happens, that's perfect. If you don't have the answer, it's like, well, I think we might do it this way. Or if you truly have no clue, you can say, that's an excellent question. And I'm glad you asked it, because if you did, probably 5 other people have the same question. And I'm going to get the answer to you after break. That's all. But you've engaged the audience, and that's important. Just having any question lets you know that they're paying attention, right? Right. So we work through some of these fears that people have and show that you can really just turn that. It's not a bad thing. It's an interaction. And the worst thing that can happen is if you totally forget what you're supposed to say. Most times we have, if you don't have a teleprompter, but you have notes over on the podium. There's nothing wrong with saying, oh, I just lost my train of thought. Let me get this. And you get your notes and you get right back on. That's okay. A lot of times now people have teleprompters that they can work with. It's nice when you have 2, so you can work the stage. I don't say that you have to memorize your presentation. The more you do it, the more naturally it'll be memorized. However, when you can get to being really close to memorizing it, and we have tips on helping you break it down and remember it, not maybe verbatim, but close enough, you can be more relaxed about it because you know it better, right? And you can say, I read one time where they said for every 10 minutes, you have to practice an hour. Okay, so if that's 3 hours practice for a 30-minute presentation, I would say 5 times that. If you really, and you're reading it, you put it in front of you on your computer or what have you, and go through it. Now, the best thing about those stories I was telling you about if you have stories dropped into your presentation, you can't mess up the story. It's your story. Nobody knows if you mess it up. Nobody knows if that's not the way it was. You might be in front of an audience and realize, oh, they're liking this part, and you're going to double down on it, right? So you can adapt that any way you want. And the stories will help you keep track of your talk. Because you know, these are 3 stories I'm telling, and this is what comes in between. And the stuff in between is your knowledge of what you're there to share. So if you're there to share about your product or your software, you know this stuff. So then the only thing you're really trying to memorize or kind of lock in is the transitions. And those transitions are what make you feel really smooth when you go from beginning to end.
That's so good. So I want to repeat this. So let's say I have to give a talk in front of my team, and all my team members are going to be there, and it's a 10-minute talk. How long did you say I should be practicing?
Well, for 10 minutes, they say an hour. So I would say 5 hours. This is a little bit different, though. You know all your team. I don't know if this is a new practice that you're going to do, right? Or maybe it's a new software, or we're going in another direction to serve another population. You still want to make sure you start it with a little story. And stories can take a minute. And stories don't have to be super dramatic. It's just get their attention for now. I tell people to keep a story journal, because stories are going to pop up in the most surprising ways, right? I was walking my dog the other day, and I live near a lake. And as we were walking around the lake, she's a puppy. She's a year, and she's a sheepadoodle. So she's super fluffy and playful. We're stopped to say hello to some older gentlemen. I'm talking pretty old. They're like in their late 80s. One was on a scooter, and the other one was on a walker. And he kind of moved a little bit slowly, right? We didn't have much time to chat. So I said, well, nice talking to you guys, but we got to get going. So I said, okay. So I said, come on, Daisy, let's go. And we started to walk away. And the little guy, he's like 90 pounds soaking wet on his walker, says to his buddy, now he thinks he's lowering his voice, but you know, at 88, they speak pretty loudly. And he says to his buddies, wait here, I'm going to go get her number. And he starts with like a 9-point turn on his walker, right? And I'm like, come on, Daisy, let's go. So outrunning wasn't the problem. So we got out of it. The point is, it was just a little interaction. And I use that when I'm talking to salespeople, because an old mentor of mine once said, and this is a little raw, but he said, in sales and sex, you don't ask, you don't get, right? At 88. No.
That's
so you'll funny. Find the ways. That's not a long story. That was like a minute.
Yep. Right? And it automatically, like, it does. It keeps people's attention. Now they're listening. And then you're right. You demonstrated that so well. Story and then your information. Okay. So that's amazing. So I want to ask you, because you have I've heard some surprising statistics from you that like you can increase your revenue 10 or 20% if you become good at public speaking. I think you also have another one that people with strong public speaking capabilities are 50% more likely to be seen as like a leader. So for someone out there who's like, no, I am not, it doesn't come natural to me. I don't want to do it. Can you please share, especially maybe for the women who are listening out there, like, why is this so important that they master?
Well, that's a great setup, because a lot of my clients are women in CEO positions that have climbed that corporate ladder because they're really good at what they do. And they finally have that opportunity. And now they're in upper management and they have to speak to teams, or they have to speak in the boardroom. And that's not something they've done before. But you can see why they're apprehensive, because they haven't done that. And we've all heard the old story of men will apply for a position that they have 3 out of 10 qualities ready to go. And the women want 9 or 10, right? You're sitting here. All those people in that room expect you to be really good because they know how good you are. And you don't need to worry, do I know my knowledge? You have it. Do I have all of this inside of me? Yeah. Presenting it is a little bit different. And that's definitely true on what they're most apprehensive about their promotion. And they come to me and they say, I want to get good at this. I'm good at everything else. I want to be good at this. And it's very easy because they have the knowledge. They really have the confidence. They really do, or they wouldn't have come as far as they have. It's just a new skill. And nobody, who was it? Ralph Walderson. You know who I'm saying? I'm stuck. But he said there are no great speakers born that way. Nobody's born a great speaker.
That's what I was going to ask you. Do you think it comes naturally to some, or do you really think everybody is equal?
Some of us have experience that we didn't know we were growing. As an example, now, moms, I say that because as a single mom, it was heavy on me, but dads are getting really good at it too. And that is telling their kids stories. When we want to convince our kid to do something, we always tell them the benefits of it. And we tell them, we put stories into it. It's almost natural as a child working with children. If you lean on those skills and say, how did I convince a kid to do that? Just bigger, right? And just expand on that. Find a way. I have to present these facts or these growth numbers or what have you, or this new idea. How would I do this to somebody that I know and I want them to know how important it is? You would tell them, this is going to be good for you for this reason. You're in there to share something that you know is going to benefit your audience, whether it's a board of directors or 3,000 people. And when you focus on the service that you're giving instead of yourself, it gets a whole lot easier.
I think that's some of the best advice I've heard is if you really focus on like how you're helping, how you're serving, and you take the focus off of you and what you look like and what you think people are thinking about you, that's made a big difference in my journey in learning to become more comfortable speaking. So
especially in what you do. They say a heart that's focused on service can't be nervous.
That's so good. Will you say that again? I've never heard that.
A heart that's focused on service can't be nervous.
That's so good.
It can't be both.
That's really good. Well, just to wrap up this story, this everything that you're saying about speaking and storytelling. Is there any other like examples you have on why you think like more people should be working with you and the difference you've seen, like a case study you've seen with a client that's really had success?
Sure. I tell you, one lady, her occupation is what's referred to in her industry as crisis intervention. When there's like 9/11, she's one of the counselors that they bring in to help all the first responders and whatnot deal with this. She had been on Howard Stern's show, and she could list over 650 stages.
Wow.
Talking about the work that she does. And she came to me because she said, I never have anybody come up to me after my presentation to want to work with me. And she said, occasionally they'll say, oh, that was kind of interesting, but I'm not getting them following back to me. So then it was restructuring her talk. Now, she was comfortable, but you can imagine, if I broadly call her a therapist, their nature is to be sort of subdued, to be listening, to be calming, right? I said, you're not exciting them. I mean, the information you have is great, but understand that the content you're sharing is only 7% of your presentation. 38% of it is your tone. Your tone is how loud, how soft, how fast, how slow. And we even talk about speaking in rhythms. And then 55% is your body language.
55% is your body language?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And it doesn't mean that you have to look like Woodstock, but learning to incorporate body language, especially into your storytelling, is so easy. It's so easy. And again, I saw a study out of London, and they reviewed 20 top TED Talks. And they said, out of all the TED Talks they researched, the ones that were in the bottom 50% had about 270 movements, body movements or hand movements, etc., in their 15-minute talk. The top 50% had over 400.
Wow.
Now that sounds like a lot to put into 15 minutes. It's not when you break down, because it's something like, when I reached up here and then I pulled it back in.
I see.
Right? So when you're incorporating it, and it's not just walking back and forth. If you were to say, our sales have gone from 10,000, 20,000, 50, there's movement, because your brain moves every 8 seconds.
Yes. So for everyone who's just listening to this, you're going to have to watch it on YouTube as well. So you can see, because Mary, you're showing as the numbers go up, I see your hand going up, and I'm
up like a step.
I think that's such a good tip that I could be using. I know last time I gave a 5-minute speech, I have these like hands that are just kind of always doing their own thing, but it's not tied to what I'm actually saying. They just have like nervous energy that are moving. So that's something that I will definitely implement next time I give a presentation.
It's fun. And it also helps you remember, because you're incorporating more senses.
Oh, you're so good. Okay. So for anyone out there who's like, wow, like I know that this could really benefit me, and whether it's to actually give a presentation in front of a big audience or just to help them talk to their teams or their potential clients better, what do you actually do? How do you work with people who's a good fit for you?
A good fit is an entrepreneur, somebody in sales, and people at C-level, because they're always having to present to somebody, right? And I work one-on-one private coaching. It's generally 8 one-hour sessions, and we usually schedule them a week apart. Sometimes people will come and say, Mary, I've got a presentation in 6 weeks. Okay, we have to double up a little bit, and we can do that.
Okay, that is so exciting. I know that next time I have a presentation to give, I will personally be calling you. And I want to switch gears now, because you work with one of our virtual assistants, Nati.
I do.
I want to hear, first of all, you've worked with virtual assistants before. So what made you switch to wanting to work with Nati, and how has it been a different experience for you?
I was working with somebody else. It was a little bit hard to keep the communication patterns going, because being in different time zones, and if I missed them, it might be a day. It just wasn't working so well for me. And then I spoke to a mutual friend of ours, and she recommended that I give you a call, because she said, she's so good. And she was working with one of your virtual assistants, and she was very happy with it. She was using the virtual assistant for different things that I do. But then when I met you, what was unique too is you had me with you on the phone, that we interviewed 3 different potential virtual assistants. And I thought all 3 of them were great. Natia, just, if I say, he rang the bell because he had such a fabulous energy about himself. He was super excited to be helping. And what can I do? He really wanted to get in there and be a team player. He didn't want to just take assignments. He really wanted to say, how can I help with this? Right. And that energy has continued.
Nati has the best energy. Like if I'm having a bad day and I meet him, he automatically like elevates me. And I think what you said is also important about like time zone. That's one thing that we've been strict on. Like it's important to work on the same time zone, because if you want him to change something, you need a response like that at that moment. You don't want to have to wait till the next day when they log in. So for anybody out there who's listening, whether you're working with us or somebody else, like just syncing your virtual assistant to work the same hours as you is important.
It really is. For the most part, I don't have too much. I'd say maybe 15% that I need done today. But part of it is a planning that we do. We lay out a calendar of what we plan on doing Monday through Friday of this week. And then we check in. For us, it's twice a week. Just that works for us. And if there's changes, there's constant communication between us. And one of the things I love about Nati, I have to tell you this. Whenever I say, Nati, I need to do this. Can we do this? And he always says, I got you. I got you. He's great. He really is great.
That's so good. So
I got
wait,
you.
what kind of task does he have for you?
Oh my goodness. He has set up a social media calendar for me. He has helped set up the podcast, that scheduling for me. He's setting up for me to be guests on other podcasts and live events. He's helped. We've done a lot of procedures that we are working in with AI to sort of revamp.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's exciting. I feel like AI it's entering our world more and more every day. But I always say, like, if you have AI tools and you pair it with a virtual assistant, that's like the best combo. Is like, sometimes you need tech, sometimes you need people, but really a combination of both is like where the magic is at.
Yeah. And between Nati and AI, it's like full steam ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's been really great.
I'm so happy. Thank you for sharing that. And my very last question, we end every podcast with this is, have you ever been anywhere in Africa? If so, where? And then if not, where would you want to go? If I gave you a plane ticket, what would you want to do? Where would you want to go on the continent?
I would love to go. Where would I want to go? I would leave that totally up to you because you know Africa. And I would tell you, I would like to go someplace where I could work in a community that I could learn how I can leave there and help them, like find them, help them while I'm there. Especially I kind of focus on women and children, microeconomies, that sort of stuff. I would love to be in that sort of environment that I could go in and help there. And then when I leave, come back, find a way to send help back, support back. That's what I would do. I mean, I know there's beautiful safaris, but that's sort of what really touches my heart.
No, that's so good. I think especially with your skills, there's so many really cool African brands or entrepreneurs or people with amazing stories, and they don't really get the coverage they deserve to share that story. So when they get that chance, they need to be able to share it in the most effective way. So pairing you with someone who has a cool story and helping them share it more, like, that would be amazing.
You know, it'd be so fun. My podcast is short episodes that it's just informative. It's just a resource for people to come to. But every once in a while, I'm dropping interviews of people who I think are doing really good work in their communities. So in my mind, they're using their voice to make the world a better place. And those are the guests that I'm having. So that would be so fun.
I'm going to send you some guests. I already have names that pop up in my head. But anyways, Mary, thank you so much for joining us. If somebody wants to either listen to you more, I want to know about your podcast. And then where can they also find you to potentially work with you?
My website, which is maryvandorn.com. You can schedule an interview, calendaring. It's fine.
Amazing. We'll put that in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining today. And we will all be practicing these tips that you shared today. So thank you.
You're quite welcome. Thanks for having me, Valerie.